Welcome to FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise.
Hi, everyone. Hi, this is Crystal. I am welcoming you to FESIG's 143rd meeting. Today's the 3rd of December, 2025, and I'm at a different location. That's why we had a change of time, and yet we have some 33 people already jumping into the Zoom room. We truly appreciate you choosing to be with us today at our 143rd FESIG meeting on the 3rd of December 2025. We are going through very troubled times. People in the disclosure community has been attacked bad. Our dearest, beloved FESIG brother, James Reich, was taken away from us just recently, and it's a very, very sad time. He has been very instrumental in assisting me and Fras and Pontus right from the start. Actually, right from the beginning, from day one, James was there with me, side by side, helping me to create this platform for you, FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group. And he's brought quite a number of amazing disclosure speakers from the secret space programs, super soldiers like Penny Bradley, Eliana, the Star Traveler, Renee Swain, and many others, many others from the secret space program. We learned so much from them. And James has been a trooper of a superhero who actually is the ringleader of the super soldiers from and taught us even way back since like almost 20 years ago about the secret space program, which was unbelievably, gosh, so advanced with all those technologies that they are privy to, and spacefaring, spacecrafts technology and all that. And we are a science meets spirit platform, so we need on a need-to-know basis about all these advanced technologies with inventors and scientists and researchers coming in to show us what they've got. And we're learning so much from every speaker here. And today we have no exception. We have some amazing speakers here for you as well. So without, well, I must say it is with a very heavy heart that we are all feeling the loss of our most precious FESIG brother, James Reich, and our condolences and deepest sympathy to Mr. Reich, his father, and the rest of his family members. We will be doing a proper memorial service for James shortly, right? And with the proper eulogies from each and every member of the team. We have formed a bond over the years because FESIG has been running for about 9 years now, right from the beginning. James was there. We are virtually members of Soul Family, the same Soul Family, and it's a very, very sad time that our brightest star, the youngest one, at only age 47, has gone with this, I suppose, due, so they say, directed energy weapon, because they don't want him to have all those conferences that he's organizing. It's the reason why you don't see him much at FESIG anymore for the last 2 years is because he's on this gravy train on organizing conferences, and he's too busy for us, I guess, So, but James is always there in the background, right? So anyway, I'm going to share screen now because we're going to start the meeting right away. Please look out for this space at FESIG's website because to join us in the eulogies for James, because he's a true superhero. He's done so much for humanity in disclosing what needs to be disclosed which was only information classified and privy only to the elitists. Right, so I'm going to share screen now, folks. Here we are. This is FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group. Sorry, I'm looking for the big screen button. There you go, because Hendrik kept saying that I ought to be using the big screen rather than, the small screen. But there is a bit of a problem for me because I'm in a different location, different setup, different format, but I'll do it, folks. But that means it's getting very near for me to tap the button. I'll do it, okay? It's not moving. Okay, so this is our 143rd meeting, Wednesday. The first Wednesday of the month, we have physics public meetings. Right, so we are actually a whole group of people who are, developing and inventing and, researching free energies devices and healing technologies as well. Okay, so I'm Crystal Gore. I'm the founder of FESIG, and I have here with me Dr. Fres Fresel, my co-chair, and Pontus is not here yet. Okay, Henrik, Jerry, and we have regulars here. I don't know if Trisha's here. Mona, Scott is here, definitely. Matty, Fernando Vosa, and so many others here. Jerry's here too. Yeah. Okay, so do go to our website to read about our mission and all. I don't want to repeat it in every meeting because it takes a lot of time. Trying to save time here. So everyone's welcome to join us in our platform because we offer it for free. So you can learn together with us from some of the most brilliant minds that brings a lot of information about technology, about the way forward, and disclosure information as well. So today at our 143rd meeting, sorry, I forgot to change 143 instead of 2. Our first speaker is Tom DiFerdinando, who returns to continue with part 2 of Dr. DeMille's Orgone Biophysical Research Lab's work, OBRL. Tom will present Tools to Rethink the Universe, part 2. He did part 1 a couple of months ago, and now he's going to present part 2 to complete the Orgone Energy. Okay, this will be an illustrated presentation of orgonomy, Wilhelm Reich's science of the biological, atmospheric, and atmospheric and cosmic life energy, and much more. He goes deeper into the subject, Reich's scientific thought method and approach, the implications for science generally, insight into the relationship between science and spirituality, and the reality of the cosmic ether, i.e. the Orgone energy continuum. And then after Tom has finished the first session's presentation, we have the second speaker, who is the popular Patty L. Brassard, who is one of her kind here on the planet, because she's Gaia's shaman. She's Micmac elder, 99% Mayan descendant, tribal shaman, former US Army sergeant, tech cop insider who brings out of this world mind-blowing important intel. Her experience ranges from US Army, NASA, Bell Labs, Lockheed Martin, and others. Patty has 3 embodiments here, 1 male, 1 female, and 1 both, which is current, and has done 2.4 billion years here. Patty recruited help from Silver Legion, the Lang, the Procyon, and other good ETs that helped clean and destroy the dumps of the evil cabal and the Draco stronghold. Patty is from the Guardian Group, which is from beyond the Milky Way galaxy. She will be bringing the latest intel and disclosure. So folks, please pen down next time we meet in our 144th meeting on the 7th of January at 6:30 GMT, back to normal time. That's going to be 5 hours later. That's the usual normal time, 7:30 Central Eastern Time, Europe, or 1:30 p.m. EDT, or I think EST now, isn't it? Or 10:30 a.m. PST. Right. So today is special, the time zone change, because I'm in the Far East hosting from here where I am. It's supposed to be about sentient AI, where Renee Swain will be having a conversation with Stacy McCord as well. But we are supposed to have 3 sessions, and then we have Tom's, and then James Gilliland wanted to talk about ESETI as well, but that will be in February. Okay, so I'll have to reschedule the sentient AI one to January or February. Let's see how it's going to turn out. Okay, so look out for our website because it will be announced there, right? And our website is truevisionofpeace.com/physics.html. Please subscribe to our channels and support us. If you got extras, pay forward and donate to our work here because everything costs money. And we've been doing this for free for 9 years now from our own pockets, which is making holes. And the R&D team members has been also out of pocket, buying all this equipment and all that, tinkering with the free energy devices and healing devices as well. So we have 3 channels: BitChute, Odyssey, of course, YouTube. We can't access BitChute in England, unfortunately, because it's banned. But most of our best performing videos are there. YouTube's fine, so long as it's science, we stick to science. It's YouTube's fine, all right? So I'm going to place Tom's video in YouTube and Facebook. And of course, join our Telegram group so you can interact with everyone. And then you can form study groups, you can interact with the speakers as well. And then we can have a very productive development of what we came here to do in our divine mission. Right, so without much ado, I'm going to introduce Tom properly because we owe it to our speakers who are really great with what they're doing. Oh, we learned so much because they're sharing freely their knowledge with us. Mind you, Tom is bringing Dr. Wilhelm Reich's work, Dr. DiMeo's work, and let me tell you how it's linked up with Wilhelm Reich. Wilhelm Reich is one of the most profoundly productive and maliciously maligned scientists in human history. He is responsible for an astonishing array of foundational discoveries in well over a dozen different scientific disciplines. At the same time, he died in jail, folks. It's so sad, and had his scientific publications banned and burned by the American FDA. 2 discoveries of Reich's are especially relevant for this presentation. One is his scientific demonstration of the reality of the life energy, Orgone Energy, as a distinctly physical and spontaneous mortal entity in its own right. The second is his discovery of the biophysical phenomena of human armoring, the capacity for a living organism to chronically contract and bind emotional and psychosexual energy, both psychically and somatically, with profoundly destructive social, personal, and cultural consequences. Dr. James DiMeo, who worked with Tom DiFerdinando for many years, who was astonished by the claims of Dr. Reich, had to find out for himself whether or not Reich was correct, and so devoted his life to investigating and replicating Reich's discovery. So now I'm going to really introduce how Tom got into this really in a very profound way with Dr. DiMeo. So Tom is a pain, injury, and trauma therapist, pioneering a hands-on technique based on the Orgone Biophysics of Dr. Wilhelm Reich. He's also the newly inaugurated director and president of the Orgone Biophysical Research Lab, OBRL, where for 20 years he worked as a part-time assistant in the lab of the late Dr. James DeMille. Tom has given presentations on both his own work and that of Dr. Reich and Dr. DeMille at universities and public venues on multiple continents. In addition to his 35 plus years as a bodywork therapist, Tom is also the president of Rethinking AIDS, Unmasking COVID, a scientific and public advocacy group of dissident scientists, physicians, journalists, and activists working to expose scientific and medical fraud, especially in the fields of AIDS and the CV-19. As a staunch advocate for freedom, Tom's ultimate goal is to help reacquaint people with their freedom fire and the constellation of inner cues arising from one's personal freedom when one's personal freedom is under attack. Over to you, Tom. Please take over the microphone and start your presentation. Thank you, folks, for bearing with me.
Thank you very much, Crystal. I'm excited to be back here and present part 2 of Tools to Rethink the Universe. Part 2 is on armoring and Saharasia, which I will explain what that is shortly. Let me see if I can get the screen share here. Okay. There it is.
Wonderful. We see it now. Thank you.
Okay. I'll try now and then to take this down so we can. You still see me though, don't you?
Yeah.
Up in the corner there.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, Tools to Rethink the Universe, Part 2, Armoring and Saharasia. Part 1 was on the Orgone energy, the life energy. I went into that in some detail in the previous one. I want to just briefly summarize what I covered in that one because that sets up what we're doing here. I'll just mention the starting premise, 3 points from it, and briefly what the conclusion was. My starting premise is that reality is reality. It does not require your belief. Reality does not require your belief. It doesn't require experts to explain it. It doesn't require validation as the truth. Reality can be known or understood by anybody because we all came from reality. The reason this is an important premise is because there is a self-correcting aspect in nature and to human beings. So my first point was that if there, in your theories and your philosophies and your way of thinking about life, if there's an inconsistency between reality and your perception of reality, there are going to be anomalies, contradictions, and destructive side effects. So if you're explaining something about life and you're giving your philosophy or you're giving a religious tradition or something about a specific scientific discovery, anything like that, if you encounter a contradiction or anomaly, what do? Do you hide it? Do you try to ignore it? Do you run away from it? You try to come up with an ad hoc explanation of why the observation is not fitting your theory. No, these are not the things to do, although that's usually what is done. Instead, I'm encouraging you to grab it, run toward the contradictions and the anomalies that you encounter, where there are inconsistencies between the way you're seeing life and how things are actually playing out. I encourage you to be the scientific first responder. You run toward the fire and run toward the bullets. Awful thought, but that's what you got to do if you want to really get to the truth. Because contradictions and anomalies are our friend. They are the gateway to the deeper truth that you may be missing, because otherwise there wouldn't be a contradiction or an anomaly. The second point is that when these talks have been offering 2 tools: the Orgone energy, the reality of it, and the reality of armoring. These are the 2 tools we're rethinking the universe, but the third tool is even more important in a way, and that's the relationship between Orgone energy and armoring. The relationship is with armoring because it tightens up our capacity for perception and cognition and expression. What happens is it doesn't block out perception of the Orgone energy, but it deadens it. It kind of puts you in molasses or in a fog. So everybody can kind of sense there's some universal principle out there and that there's something that moves things and organizes them, but you can't quite get what it is. So we come up with concepts that account for it, but they tend to be incomplete. part of what I'm submitting here is that if you really dig into any contradictions or anomalies in your own work or in your own life, ultimately what you find, if you dig down, the thing that's missing is an appreciation for the reality of the life energy and or the reality of this armoring process. So that's why I'm focusing and why the Orgone Biophysical Research Lab puts armoring and Orgone Energy front and center, because they're essential parts of life, and yet they're in a fog. We sense there's evil and sickness in the world, but we don't really understand it. And we sense there's something organizing things, but we don't really understand it. So I'm just offering two tools to probe these questions. The third point that I went over in the previous talk was what I called the sticking point, and that's spontaneous action. Okay, this is, the more blocked we are in our bodies and our minds, this is a very difficult thing to appreciate because we don't feel it in our own bodies. And that is that the life energy is a self-organizing and self-motivating energy. You understand? There's not anything that makes it move or organizes it. That is its inherent nature, is it moves spontaneously and it self-organizes. Wanted to say a couple things about that. Just to think about that, when you're talking about the self-organization and the self-motivation, we're talking about structure and motion. Structure and motion coexist in nature. Motion originates from the inside. Organization originates from the inside. So they develop together. In the world of armor, that point gets lost. When we're blocked, we don't feel the spontaneous inward out aspect of the life energy. This is really important, because what happens is, if that's the thing that integrates motion and structure, all of a sudden you can't feel the relationship between them. Now you have motion in the universe over here, structure in the universe over here, and you need an outside force to explain them. If the energy is not moving by itself, you need something to explain why it's moving. If you don't realize it's self-organizing, then you need a force to explain why it's organized. We see the organization throughout the universe, right? There's also, when this spontaneous aspect is blocked in our thinking, in our perception, Reich pointed out that our thinking also becomes blocked and becomes split into what he calls mechanistic thinking and mystical thinking. So we have conventional Newtonian physics to explain motion, right? If motion in the universe is not coming from the inside out, we need an outside force, and Newtonian mechanics describes that. And that part of it describes very well, but it misses the whole living component. It makes nature dead. Everything is just like billiard balls bouncing off of each other randomly. And then in the mystical traditions, there's an awareness of this organization in the universe, but because there's not a recognition of it being self-organizing, mystical traditions recognize there's some kind of an intelligence or something, or a consciousness or a something out there that is organizing things. So you end up with this irreconcilable duality in the armored world, because we don't feel spontaneous action. We approach things, we want to understand them from a dead perspective. We want to start with a clean slate. We want to start at zero. To give the example of somebody studying blood, they have to kill the blood cells to look at the structure under the microscope. They can't look at it alive because they have no reference points. How do they organize around that? Because they don't feel it in their own bodies. So the sticking point is very important and plays out in many other ways. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. Okay. The conclusion I basically came to, I was offering a new cosmology. This was from, it was characterized in Reich's book, Cosmic Superimposition. I pointed out that Dr. DeMeo felt that this book and the cosmology of superimposition that Reich is describing was just as important as Galileo's Sidereal Messenger back in the 1600s, which was a revolutionary book on understanding the nature of the universe and motion and organization. Reich has gone even further with his discovery of what he called superimposition, which is two energy streams coming together and merging in the creative process. He describes that in detail here. I talked about it briefly in the other talk, but I'm also integrating it with this component of spontaneous action. The reason, just to illustrate the importance of this, I put up last time this Hubble photograph, which is quite extraordinary. It's like the widest view we have of the known universe. And when you look, they find there are billions of these galaxies, right? The important thing to understand here is that everywhere you look, you see a variation of the same process of superimposition. Everything is moving towards some integrated whole where it's at different stages of coming together or closing or being complete. Billions of them, everywhere you look in the universe. This is for me, highlights the spontaneous action in the universe. It's this natural organization and this natural motion, which is not being governed by any outside force. It's inherent to it. And that is absolutely essential to appreciate when you're probing the nature of reality and the universe. So that's the sticking point. So now I want to go into armoring and Saharasia. What is armoring? What is its nature? It's becoming more and more of a popular word these days, but it's not really understood what it is, or that Wilhelm Reich actually discovered a real physiological process of contraction in the body. Armoring starts, his discovery of it came in the context of his theory that he called sex economy. This was from his clinical research in trying to understand emotional health and the nature of anxiety. He developed this comprehensive and scientifically testable theory of human behavior. It's a theory that integrates psychology, sociology, and biology. The core of it, again, to get back to this part of the spontaneous action, is bioenergetic self-regulation. This is really important. It's a plasmatic theory. The whole organism moves. It's not like we're dead tissue with a nervous system that just sparks stuff, and then there's a magical consciousness that just kind of comes from nowhere. He's recognizing that the whole organism spontaneously oscillates and moves, everything about it at the level of the part and the whole. And it's governed by a process of charging and discharging bioenergy. This idea, which actually puts psychology on a natural scientific basis, this started with Freud, with his discovery or assertion of this thing he called the libido. Of course, the word libido has been thrown out of modern day psychoanalysis, but like I said, reality is reality. There is this energy, whether you want to ignore it or pretend it's not there or not. Freud always said, we need to scientifically prove this libido thing is actually real. And that's one of Reich's major achievements. He actually proved this energy that Freud was intuiting is actually an energy that not only governs the individual organism, but governs atmospheric processes and weather, and out into the cosmos and the formation of galaxies. So Reich's theory of human behavior is actually a cosmic theory. It's natural scientifically based, and it gives a remarkable way to understand human pathology, which is part of what I'm focusing on here. So let me talk about that a little bit more. What exactly is going on with this charging and discharging of energy in the organism? Okay, in Reich's book called Functioning of the Orgasm, this is where you can get all this stuff in great detail that I'm describing to you. The initial thing to understand is to understand human behavior in terms of energy regulation, like I said. So if you have, everything is driven by internal tensions. It's not coming from the outside environment. It's from the inside out. That's that spontaneous action. We feel a tension in our body and we call it hunger. We feel a tension and we call it, I'm tired. We feel a tension and we call it, I'm sexually aroused. We feel a tension and we say, I need to get some work done. All right. These are all self-motivating, self-generating, and self-organizing energies that we all share and is part of our basic humanity. So Reich was actually investigating, how does that work? How's that energy regulated? And where do things go wrong? And the big controversial, the first of his many controversial discoveries was the function of the orgasm. I mean, he was the first one that pointed out that the orgasm has two functions. It's not just a reproductive function. It has an energy regulating function, which is absolutely essential to regulating your mental and physical health and illness. And how that works is, like I was talking about, like if you're hungry, there's a tension with that. We gratify it by eating. So there's this energy charging and discharging. You know, when you're tired, you go to sleep and you discharge that energy and you wake up refreshed under healthy circumstances. Well, in the course of everyday life, there's a residual amount of energy under healthy and normal circumstances. And that energy in time concentrates in what we call the erogenous zones, which is where sexual excitation is. Through the act of sexual expression, you know, with your loved one, what happens is that energy, as I'm just kind of setting up a flow chart of energy here, the energy in the erogenous zones of the body then begins to concentrate and move down toward the pelvis and toward the genital area. A lot of people don't even feel this because their bodies are too tight. Or again, they feel it in a vague way because of our blockage. But what happens is this energy builds up, moves down there, and then through these, what Reich called orgastic convulsions, you know, through orgasm. And again, a lot of people don't experience this, so it sounds foreign to talk about it, but this is like natural science here. When this energy builds up, there are wave movements that go through the body that some of you may or may not have ever experienced in the sexual act yourselves. And there's a discharge, a cleansing of the slate, as it were, of all the excess residual energy. And it leaves you completely refreshed and at a level of natural energy regulation where, under healthy circumstances, if you're in a gratifying relationship and having gratifying sexual release, you don't want to get up and go out and kill people. You don't want to go out and fight with people or beat them up or something. It's just not there. And at the same time, you're capable of rational emotion. You're capable of the heights and the depths of joy and sadness and grief. This is what he found clinically, that, you know, when there's no chronic armoring, you are a spontaneously functioning, decent, productive human being capable of the full range of natural emotions. So that's the starting point. That's what he understood as emotional health. And that is maintained through regular and periodic orgasm and cleansing. It's not somewhere it's just when you have babies. It's just like, you know, we don't just eat 3 times in our life or just sleep 3 times. It's also, you don't have orgasm just 3 times, you know, otherwise you get this backlog of energy. So where's the pathology come in? Okay, so again, a little bit of a flow chart for this. All right, so these natural impulses that I'm describing, they come from the solar plexus, and they're wave movements. They move out, especially coordinated by the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic half in particular. There's this expansive movement of energy out toward the periphery of the body. Had 2 different directions I wanted to go there. Hold on a second to get clear on this.
Tom,
Yes?
I don't see you progressing with your slides. Are you stuck at the cover
No,
of the book?
Yeah, I'm sticking on the book. In fact, I'll take that down while I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can just see me fully. Yeah, I'm describing basically what's summarized in the book and Reich's clinical theory of sex economy to explain human behavior based on bioenergetic self-regulation. So I'm just kind of mapping out what that means in terms of fulfilling, you know, our basic human needs that we all share. And the importance of discharging that in a periodic way through the orgastic process. And I was describing where the pathology comes is then, starting in childhood, when natural pleasurable impulses of wanting to reach out to the environment are chronically thwarted, particularly in painful ways, that energy doesn't get expression. But it's real, it's physically real, so it has to go somewhere. So where does it go? It starts at, like I said, in the solar plexus. Instead of moving out to the periphery of the body where it's discharged in action, instead it concentrates back up into the chest and the cardiac region, and you start experiencing it as anxiety. All right? So there's a flow chart here. When the natural expression goes outward, when that's chronically blocked, it can't go out, it has to go somewhere. Think of energy like water. It kind of takes up space. It has a density and a concentration to it. So if that's concentrating in the chest, you start feeling anxiety. You know, in a child or even a baby, there will be like chronic crying or what we call bad behavior or just kind of franticness. This is an expression of the energy that's not getting out. So for survival, a new thing emerges. It's the armoring process. Armoring is built on a natural process of holding. In the body, we can hold energy. If you're hungry, like I said, you don't have to eat right away. If you're tired, you don't have to sleep right away. If you're sexually aroused, you don't have to immediately take care of that. We have a holding capacity, and that's normal and natural. What happens with armoring is this energy that I'm talking about, that's anxiety that's built up in the body. We can't tolerate that. So the organism starts pulling that energy into a different place. And Reich identified three main places it's pulled. One is into the musculature. He called that body armor or somatic armor. The other is it's drawn into your character, into your psychology, into your way of relating to the world, so that your ideation starts becoming more rigid or stiff and defensive. It's also is seen through socio-political thought. We're not touching on that one today. So this is where energy then gets stored in the armoring. I want to make very clear how that happens, because again, we have an idea of these concepts, but they're a little vague. With Reich's work, we can be a lot clearer about what happens. So I want to kind of demonstrate or illustrate what happens with the armoring process. Okay, say you need to cry. Okay, when there's natural uninhibited crying, there's a thing that happens with the breathing, and this is in the more dramatic way. There's a whole, obviously, range of expression this, but this is just for illustration purposes. There's a lot of breathing and heaving. The shoulders are moving, the chest may be heaving, there's sound coming out, there's tears coming down, the mouth, is open, and there's kind of these quivers and shakes through the whole body in large scale crying. Okay, so what happens if you suppress that, if that doesn't get expression? How does a child stop crying? If you say, stop crying, what does a child do? The first thing they do is they hold their breath. You don't have to teach them that. They just know that spontaneously, because emotion rides the breathing. There's a deep relationship between breathing and emotion. So if you're suppressing your crying, the first thing is you hold your breath. Now that breaks up into different parts in the body. Your diaphragm tightens, and you may start feeling nausea. Your chest will tighten, your heart will start racing. Your throat tightens, you get the proverbial lump in the throat, like at the sad movie. That's what's happening. It's choking back tears. You start developing TMJ because your jaw is tightening to hold back the expression. Your eyes and eye muscles tighten up. You start getting a headache. So what do we have now? Just from having repressed the crying, now we have 5 problems. We got headaches, we got TMJ, we got a choking sensation, we got heart arrhythmias, and you have nausea. You go to a doctor and they want to give you 5 remedies for those things, instead of saying, maybe you just need a good cry. Now, I'm oversimplifying because it's not as easy as that, but the point is there. And this is something that, just imagine if there was more of an understanding of the armoring process alone, the range of problems that could be dealt with more effectively, medically, sociologically, biologically, just by understanding this process of fragmentation in the body. The body has to diminish the intensity of sensation and emotion, and it does it by breaking up expression in body parts. And like I said, your thinking becomes defensive too. It's a way of holding energy. So that's the armoring process. That is a real and physical process, just as real as the heartbeat or as the digestion or anything else. And on some level, we're all aware of this. We've all felt it. All I'm doing is I'm working to make it even more clear and more accessible so that we understand it's a real and lawful process that can be accessed and actually worked with. In Reich's therapy, which is called orgone therapy, good luck finding people who do it. There's maybe about 24 on the planet. What orgone therapy does and why it's so much more effective and efficient than most psychotherapies is that it brings you into contact, what Reich called contact, with that armoring in the different parts of body and in your character attitudes. It brings you into contact with it. And so what happens is different body parts start becoming more alive and start coming together. And it's almost like putting the puzzle pieces back together. It's very uncomfortable. You feel very anxious until it all comes together, and then flush. The repressed emotion from even 50 years ago finally comes out, discharges all that tension, and you become a more whole human being. And then it's just a matter of integrating that into your life. So like I said, I'm giving you a flow chart of a bioenergetic understanding of the body and how it self-regulates. And when this happens in what Reich calls emotional health, your capacities for freedom and responsibility are well balanced and natural, because you don't need forces from the outside forcing you to be free or forcing you to be responsible. It just comes out spontaneously and feels really wrong if you have it thwarted. Okay. Let me think if there's anything else I wanted to say about armoring. Okay. All right. So let me go back to the screen here.
We are only having about less than 20 minutes left.
Okay. So I'm going to go now into the Saharasia part.
Q&A session. I mean, the Q&A, we need the 15 minutes or so for Q&A, Tom.
Okay. Well, I'll dash through the broad essentials of the Saharasia.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see, I'll just mostly talk. I'll skim through some of this. All right, Dr. DeMayo's book, which I have a picture of further down here, is called Saharasia, the 4,000 BCE origins of child abuse, sex repression, warfare, and social violence in the deserts of the old world. The question is, what's up with this armoring stuff? If this is responsible for human pathology, has it always been there, or does it have a starting point? If people are born bad, if we're born armored, if we're born blocked, then evil and warfare and social violence should be evenly distributed around the planet. If you go through all of archaeology for thousands of years and all of world history, you should see it evenly distributed around the world. Dr. DeMayo was a geographer. He was a great geographer. He had a brilliant idea. He said, well, let me test Wilhelm Reich's theory of sex economy. Sex economy predicts that people were actually born healthy and peace-oriented, and that it's only when they become chronically armored and their social institutions induce the armor that then you start getting pathological behavior and warfare. So geographers put things on maps. So basically what Dr. DeMayo did was he went and he put together, let me see one of the pictures here. He put together a list. He was using the word patrist, because he was speaking to the anthropological community. But it's really the word armoring. He put together a list that the broad summary of it is you have the category of the societies that were pro-woman, pro-child, pro-sexuality, and anti-violent on one side. This is based on Reich's discoveries. And on the other side, you would put people who are hateful toward women, cruel toward children, anxious about sexuality, and tended to be violent. And he found, by Reich's theory, that these things go together. Where you find suppression of women, you're going to find sexual anxiety, and you're going to find tendencies toward violence. Where you find deep respect and love for women, you're going to find love for children, you're going to find an embrace of healthy and natural sexuality, and you're going to resist any violent things coming toward you and will defend yourself against them. You won't be the provocateur. You will simply defend yourself. So anyway, Dr. DeMayo went through over 1,000 subsistence level cultures and just went through all of their what's been recorded about their social institutions, marriage, child rearing, education, and looked for anything that related to these sex economic factors and put them into two categories, two big columns. And then he plugged it all into a world map. And again, if armoring is natural and that we're born that way, the violent behavior should be evenly distributed around the world. And he discovered that was not the case. He had an amazing discovery. He was not anticipating this. He put all his data into a computer. This is back in the 70s. He was one of the first college kids that had access to computers for this kind of work that would have taken decades to do. Plugged all the variables in and found out there is actually a distribution to armoring and chronic social violence. And this world behavior map is one of the most profound maps you could ever find. You could talk hours about this, and we're going to do seconds. If you notice, when you trace these behaviors back in time and you go through the archaeology and the history of it, as Dr. DeMayo did, he put everything on thousands and thousands of index cards, put all the data into the computer, hit the button, And all of it went back 6,000 years to this area that you see in the dark area there in Northern Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia, that this is where you see the beginnings of the armored behavior. Now, what's fascinating is like, well, why there? What's happening there? You know, obviously people start saying, oh, this is just racist and you know, xenophobic discussion. No, this is from data from ethnographers who didn't even know each other, you know, from hundreds of years, and archaeology from, you know, thousands of scientists who were not coordinating the results. This is in the data. And what you find is 6,000 years ago, let me see if I have a slide here, this whole area changed. 6,000 years ago, it was grasslands. It was forested. It had animals, lakes. You see this in the, when you dig into the ground there, you see remnants of all this stuff. For some reason, 6,000 years ago, that whole climate changed. That's the real climate change everybody should be focused on. That whole area became desert. And out of the desert emerged these new social institutions just for survival, which became authoritarian patriarchal. And the significance of this relative to armor is that what Dr. DiMeo puts thorough out in great detail in his book is there is a deep relationship between starvation and this kind of social environmental trauma and maternal deprivation. In other words, it has the same effect as child abuse and thwarts natural energy regulation and generates chronic armoring. From there, and again, I'm giving a super fast description of it here, and the details are in his book. From there, over time, you would see the people at the core of Saharasia become conquerors, you know, because the things are insufficient, and there's this armoring. There's this need to really beat up on people. So it starts spreading out around the world, and he puts all this on the maps in great detail. And you find that there's an origin, that there was, you know, the whole Garden of Eden myth was actually a real thing over 6,000 years ago. The area he called Saharasia was wet. It was not a desert. So you see in this map, the bottom one is the world behavior map. The other one shows there are actually two areas there in the northeast of Africa and in the core of Arabia is where you see in the archaeology the very beginnings. It's 6,000 years ago. Prior to that, like I said, there's no unambiguous evidence of any kind of warfare or social violence prior to 6,000 years ago. This is a stunning discovery, and this is scientific proof of the fact that people are not born bad, that our badness is a result of these chronic repressions of just natural bioenergetic self-regulation. Oh, this is fun. This is, you can see in the artwork, prior to 6,000 years ago, artwork is very fluid. It's very positive with women and animals, and there's this fluidity to everything. But once you start getting into the desert, even the rock art changes. It starts becoming, you start seeing warrior nomad drawings, and the animals and people are like kind of fragmented, or like these pictures, you know, they become more abstract, whereas prior to then it was all more realistic, indicating there was a big change socially and biologically. This is just illustrating some of the effects of starvation on a kid. You know, the brain doesn't develop. You can shine a light through the head and light shows because the brain is like shrunk up and dehydrated. Profound effects of this stuff. So anyway, this is what the book looks like. It's a life-changing book. It's, for my money, one of the most important books on the planet. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this work with OBRL. And it's one of the reasons I'm focusing on Orgone Energy and armoring, because we all have our fantasies of how to save the world. And there's lots of good ideas and things to focus on. From my perspective, if we could be more clear and, you know, learn and feel the relationship of Orgone Energy and armoring, it would give us a whole different way of looking at all the anomalies and contradictions and the violence and the evil that we see in the world. That's the lab, Orgone Biophysical Research Lab, although it's going to be moving east. That's Dr. DiMeo, and that's Wilhelm Reich. And okay, a final word, and then we'll go to the questions. For expedience sake, I will basically read this. Okay, going back to Reich's book, Cosmic Superimposition. In the first chapter, he talks about what he called the meadow and the stage. It's a metaphor for natural living and armored living. The meadow representing, of course, natural living, the stage where the show is, of course, being, you know, the unnatural living and the armored living. Right. So this is what we're talking about in these presentations that I'm doing. I'm speaking from the point of view of the meadow. Okay. We're so used to living on the stage that we try to look at the meadow from the stage instead of the other way around. Okay. So from the stage, the more mystical traditions look at the meadow and they see something immaterial and unknowable. You know, while the mechanists, they look out, they see a bunch of parts that require statistics to explain the relationship, because the spontaneous action, the sticking point is there. People, you know, we in the armored world, we can't connect these things. In this talk, I'm trying to describe the stage from the perspective of the meadow, of the bioenergetic self-regulation, the life energy. Okay, this is disconcerting for a lot of people because it requires that you be able to have a visceral sense of the meadow. But with our armoring, it's hard to do that. It makes us anxious. Anything that talks about or touches on natural self-regulation makes people nervous, particularly when it comes to sexual self-regulation. So it's a real problem, but it's not insurmountable. We can still, like I said, we can still all sense there's a deeper truth. The longing for it shows up in our concepts and in our quests. You know, we're trying to restore contact with nature, but we don't recognize the role of armoring in that struggle. So this is a big part of the message in these presentations that I'm doing. It's not only to try to help equip us with a better understanding of this wrench in the machinery, namely the armoring, but also to help us reacquaint ourselves with core contact, with the functional unity that we all sense is there, but that we keep trying to understand from the perspective of the stage rather than from the meadow. So there are these two interrelated tools that I'm offering, the Orgone Energy and the armoring. They're both real, and together they provide a profound inroad to rethinking the universe and the nature of reality and why we keep messing it all up. So that's a speedy run through. Hope I wasn't talking too fast.
Thank you so much, Tom. This is quite a fascinating subject, isn't it? Yeah, Patty's here, our second session speaker. So
your microphone is scratchy. Your microphone is scratchy, Crystal. It's making a crackly sound, I think.
My microphone is
now
scratchy. Okay, now it stopped because I've adjusted it. Yeah. Okay. Tom, thank you so much for coming back here to complete the second part of your presentation, which is fascinating. I would like to, before I pass over the microphone to our co-chair, Press, I just wanted to ask one question to start the ball rolling.
Sure.
And the first question is, has Saharasia, you're saying, right? That particular region is particularly petrist, extreme petrist, and that is a lot of repression of the sexual energy. That's why you see this comparison to the other part where it's more matrix orientated. So my question is, I want to know if it's got anything to do with some religious teachings, whether it's got any relevance with religion?
Absolutely. A lot of religion developed actually in Saharasia. And I think it became, okay, when you're at the core of the desert, things are the absolute worst. I mean, basically everything dies, you know, at the core of the desert, there's no life there. As you move out toward the periphery, you can still survive, but of course it's difficult. There's a struggle. You're going to tend to have social institutions that are highly regulated just because of the scarcity of everything. As you start moving out, you get a little more freedom and a little more organization and a little more activity and natural productivity. What was your question again? Just this.
I just asked the question whether religion,
yes, religion.
Religion has got a big part to play in the extreme, what you call petrist or matrix societies.
It does, and again, if you see these things in a watered down way, it's a little bit different in each of the religions. Like Islam is very different from the other religions, and which is why it's so controversial to talk about too. It's very different. And then Christianity, Judaism, and Buddhism, and these, they're kind of in a whole different category. There tends to be, Christianity is the easiest example because they had a reformation. They went from the Old Testament to the New Testament. In the New Testament, it all became about love. It's almost as though there was a place where people started, the armoring was at least loose enough that they recognized there was a natural way of dealing with people, that you should want to do unto others as you would have others do unto you. You should orient your life around love. So that started becoming codified in the religion, but it also included the armoring. Again, this is all very controversial, but from the Reichian perspective, the natural sexuality in religions tends to get pushed aside or demonized or looked at as unhealthy or dangerous, right? So there's a big sex repressive element to most religions, some more than others. In Christianity, it's interesting because in marriage, they're very pro-sex, but prior to marriage, they're very anti-sex. From a Reichian perspective, this has profound effects on the developing organism, because what's found in sex economy is that the sexuality of children, and I'm not talking about sexuality like pedophilia at all. I'm talking about just kids playing together like they do in these old society, these more primitive societies. There's this natural sexuality, and also in adolescence, natural relationships, sexual relationships, loving relationships developed. When all that's thwarted, there's this backlog of energy, and you start armoring, and then you start craving and developing social institutions that tend to reinforce it, because anything that moves toward the healthier thing triggers anxiety. So religion has become different religions, different parts of each religion have codified to different degrees the loving, aspects and some of the destructive aspects. So it's kind of in the middle of the Saharasia. You have the harshest part, and then you have the New World, and then you have kind of this in-between place where there's different levels where it's more patrist or less patrist as you get further from the area. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea.
Yeah. Yes, Tom. Thank you so much. Over to you, Fraz, co-chair.
Well, thank you. And what I found was interesting was this goes along with some of my long life studies trying to understand why we are where we are today as different societies. And the information from the book is absolutely amazing because it's things that I have observed over the years. We take a look at the Sahara Desert and the religions that come out of it, and especially south of the center of that desert, coming back in, and we go, why was there a problem with the people coming out of that South Sahara Desert back into the Eurasia area? And
Right.
A lot of it goes to this starvation. And you have basically cannibalism and slavery, and basically the strongest and the fittest rule. And this spread out even to the Americas as the illustration came. And so I was a little dumbfounded as I was watching this presentation today. And we have only one key. There's one thing that we kind of see as evidence besides the structures that are still there that don't line up with history, and the area of Giza. The Egyptians didn't build it. They kind of took over some of the old structures in there. And we have the last key is in the center of the Sahara Desert, which is the glass shards. So there was something big and bad that happened, not just simple climate change, but a complete changing of the soils and stuff of that era. I really appreciate your talk today. I'm going to open it up to the questions. That's my comments and stuff. And ask some of our fellow viewers today here in our Zoom meeting to ask some questions. I really thank you.
You'll love the book, Fraz. It's mind blowing. It's again, it's a confirmation of Reich's sex economic theory and discoveries, totally in an unblinded way, the way the discovery was made, and it clarifies so many things.
Super.
Well,
yeah, it's on my list.
Actually, let me say one more. Let me say one more thing about that. I remember in growing up and hearing in school all these things about different cultures, and there was always this kind of moral equivalence that went on, and this leveling of the playing field. That even though the Aztecs might have cut hearts out of children, it was just their culture, and you're horrified by it. You go, there's something wrong here. No, it was just their culture, and we do that everywhere. Well, the Saharasia discovery helps us by factoring in emotional health and illness. We can finally go, oh yeah, it's not natural to be cutting the hearts out of children. There's something deeply pathological there, and it's not xenophobia to say so. It's like, no, that is not a good thing.
Real quick here, do you have anything that they do in the grit part of it for people? Is there tools or stuff? Some of us walk around with things like Orgonite around our necks, but is there other things that we do that can help facilitate this releasing of the armory?
Well, outside of therapy, like I said, it's the easiest thing I can cut to the chase is pay attention to anomalies and contradictions, right? Anywhere, even these things you're wearing, be clear. Am I really getting results or not? And if I'm not, be honest about it and investigate what's going on here, because you're eventually going to come back to something about Orgone Energy or armoring.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is there any question from the floor? Do post it on chat or just have your hands up, and Fresh will call you out and ask you to unmute and speak to Tom. So we've got only about like 5 or 7 minutes left, folks.
Judy Appleseed did have a comment, and I was wondering if she has a question now. It was a good comment that she made. Is there a question that you have, Judy? Go ahead and unmute yourself. Not hearing anything. Patty, I'm gonna grab you real quick because there's some stuff in here I think Patty might have a question or a comment on.
Yeah. We can't hear you, Patty. You've been muted. Oh, your volume's not good.
The technological struggles.
Yes.
Patty, we can't hear, and I'm panicking. If you can't speak, I don't know how I'm going to do the second session. We can't hear you.
Okay, we've got major interference on Patty's mic.
Patty, look in the lower left of your screen.
We can see your lips moving, but we can't hear you.
I can pick up a very little bit from her.
Christine, help.
Okay. Patty will come back to you. Anybody else on the floor? Raise your hand.
Testing, 1, 2.
Okay, there's Patty.
No, here. Here's mine.
Patty, I think we can hear you now. Connor.
Go ahead, Patty.
Yeah. Patty, if you speak up, perhaps yeah. Oops, you're muted. Again. You're muted. You're muted. Yeah. Henrik say possibly your cable is not connected well.
Okay, now you're unmuted.
Testing, 1, 2.
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you now. Yay. Go on then.
Okay. Now let me turn the my computer speaker up. There we go. What I was saying is the girl you tried to call on, her mic isn't set up, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the other thing, on the comment I had on what we were talking about, people are leaving out an awful lot of history, and the fact that even back during the days of Egypt, that was under the control of the Anunnaki. And prior to that, the Draco. And so the whole issue revolves basically around slavery. Even the Garden of Eden, that was the Anunnaki's edition of trying to create the completely stupid human slave. That's why they didn't want them having knowledge. So that was the whole thing about eating from the tree of knowledge. And we deliberately told them what was going on. And that's what broke up the Garden of Eden, the fake Garden of Eden on Earth, because that's not where humanity was created. And you got to also remember, this is what we call the third world, because we've actually had civilization twice before. We've been around a very long time. And the ETs kept wiping out our civilization and pushing us back to the Stone Age again. So, the whole thing, the Anunnaki saying they created humanity, no. We've already been around for a very long time.
So, okay, good. So this is good. So what I'm saying is, okay, take that, have that. This is something, how does this fit into or integrate with what you're saying? Because the scientific
evidence, the trauma.
What did you say?
Trauma. You got to understand the trauma
yes.
imposed on humanity from the outside that causes that sort of reaction.
And that it has a starting point 6,000 years ago. So, whatever that was.
When that started in this latest rev, of destroying humanity and coming back was about 10,000 years ago. So, yeah, it fits in the same block. It starts getting noticeable at around 6. But, okay. Yeah, it actually started 10,000 years ago. But, yeah, that's the cause. It's been imposed from the outside. You bang on a person enough, they're going to build a shell, basically.
Yeah, even down to the amoeba. I mean, this was, I forgot who actually did the experiment, but it might have been in Freud's time. If you watch under a microscope an amoeba, which is, a pulsating organism, just like a human being, except not as developed. And when it has an impulse to reach out for food, it creates a pseudopod and it reaches out, which is identical with people's pleasure response, reaching out. If you then poke it under the microscope with a pin, the pseudopod immediately retracts in and the cell becomes tight, which is the same thing in the human organism. If there's a harsh thwarting, a firecracker goes off and the kid contracts. Same thing happens. But this is the crucial part.
It's global and it affects us on everything because it's a change in the global harmonic. So it has an effect on literally everything.
Yes, let me go. There's a little piece that's going to tie it in even better. Okay, so now if you poke the thing, after a few minutes, it'll recover and it'll come out again and be okay. If you then poke it again, it contracts, and then little by little, it'll come out again. But after like a third or fourth time, it stays contracted. Yeah. And then if you keep poking at it, it begins to shrink and disintegrate. It's a, I don't even want to use the word metaphor because it's literal. It's protoplasm being traumatized. It's the inside out impulse being killed, and then the organism disintegrates. In human beings, Reich identified that as cancer. It's like after being poked enough and you're chronically tight your whole life, and then you keep getting poked, you begin to retract and shrink. And then your body disintegrates, just like we do when we die, except before we die, it happens, and then we call it cancer.
Interesting.
But on the ET level, it's a complete shoving from your heart-centric frequency down to your root chakra entry, and energy-wise, globally. And I don't think people really understand how deep this goes. I'm talking all the way to the electrical grid, which is also, the 60 hertz, 120 and 220 hertz. That's your root chakra frequency. It goes really, really deep. And this was all done deliberately. So
Yeah, like I
yeah,
said,
that's
so we have two tools to examine that more deeply. Once you factor in
Okay.
what exactly has the Orgone energy fit into that process, and where does armoring, because even extraterrestrials, I would have to suggest that there's capacity for armoring there too. You know, it's a big question of if these UFO beings, you know, are they hostile or are they friendly? Well, if they're a part of the life energy too, whatever they are, no matter how different they are, they have a capacity you could predict for expansion and contraction and chronic contraction too. So the prediction would be some probably are very hostile and some are probably completely loving and peaceful. So we can anticipate that.
Of the 120 that we've interacted with here on the surface of Earth, only 6 of them have been positive, and the long-term ones, none of them are positive. That's just
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Patty. We're looking forward to your sessions. Thank you so much.
Yes, we're
Back to you,
looking forward.
Crystal.
Yes.
Back to you, Crystal.
I think that's about it. We can wrap it up, right, Press? Yeah. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Tom, for bringing the completion of your presentation in the second part of your work that is presented today. Thank you so much for gracing our platform today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, choosing to spend time with us today. Just hang on there because Patty will be speaking at the second session, and we're going to take about 2 or 3 minutes of a party break, go to the toilet, get a drink or something like that, and come back here. Okay. So there being no other business on this first session of Physics 143rd meeting. Now, this first session is being adjourned to the second session. Thank you. You can stop.